Hello and welcome to The Real American. I'm Tracy Coyer, your host, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Representative Tim Mcgough from Merrimack, a candidate for state senate. So, nice to have you here. Good to talk to you. And why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started in politics?
Well, first, Tracy, thanks for having me on The Real American. It's a real pleasure to sit here next to you. It's about time. We've been talking about it for a while. It's great to see you here and in the studio with Justin, and great to talk to the people of Merrimack again. So yeah, like you said, I've been in town for 32 years and just finishing my third term in the House, and now taking the step up to represent Merrimack, Amherst, Milford, and Wilton in the state Senate. So I sit on the Commerce Committee and the Resources Committee, and I believe I'm the first legislator to do that, at least from the town of Merrimack, from this district.
Now, stop me if I'm wrong, but we haven't had an actual state senator from Merrimack in quite some time, so this will be kind of groundbreaking, won't it?
It's been decades, actually, as far back as the 60s. Merrimack then was in the district with Dunbarton and Bow, and so I mean a really, really long time ago, maybe 50 years since Merrimack, which is the largest town in this Senate district, has had their own voice to represent us in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And it's probably one of the reasons we've been stuck with just not a strong enough voice to stand up for us when we have polluters like Saint-Gobain. When we got the tolls, we had the tolls for 10 years. They were supposed to be around 10 years. We got stuck with them for 20. Mm-hmm. We couldn't get rid of them. Time after time we tried. And maybe if we had a strong voice from the biggest town in this district, we would have had a better chance. I mean, it took us to get the Speaker of the House from our district in an executive order to get rid of some of those tolls. And it was a step-by-step process. So,
yeah. As I recall, when the tolls were going out, I can't remember which Democrat it was, but they attempted to take credit for removing the tolls.
Well, funny you should mention that. My opponent actually voted to keep the Exit 12 tolls. She voted as a House member in 2014 to keep the Exit 12 tolls. That was Senate Bill 3, 2014. And that's just not good for Merrimack.
No, it wasn't.
And I mean, she's not from our town. She's only been in the district 15 years, less than half the time I've been here. And so, that's just one issue. There's a lot more to it than just the tolls. Thankfully, they're gone. It was a great work of collaboration and unity. A lot of people put a lot of time, Speaker Hinch, our current representatives on both sides of the aisle, frankly. So a lot of people get a lot of credit for that. And that's exactly the kind of collaboration and unity that voters want right now. We need people that can work across the aisle, get together, and pass good legislation that disregards extreme views from both sides. And there is extremism on both sides, and so we've got to kind of get rid of that and shake hands and get the people's work done. And that's one of the main reasons that I'm running for this office, for a step up after 3 terms in the House.
One of the things I've noticed over the past few years watching, and I had done a stint as a legislative researcher for National Right-You Congressmen. I don't even know if they're still in business. I think they are, but I haven't had any dealings with them in about probably 10, 15 years. They were a great company to work for, but those were the days where you could actually write your representatives, they would respond to you, and they actually represented the people of their community, their constituents. It seems now that everything is so mashed up, and it doesn't matter what the people want or have to say, because a lot of the politicians have already made up their mind, and there's absolutely nothing that's going to sway them. And I know that you're not like that, and I know the majority of the people that I've spoken to have been like that. But I can remember writing letters and, basically getting a middle finger, for lack of a better term, from people that were supposed to be representing me, and they weren't. So it's nice to actually sit down with somebody that listens to the people that are talking to them, and actually, if they disagree with you, they're going to give you a legitimate reason that it shouldn't be done or can't be done, because everybody can't get everything they want. That's where compromise comes in. But at least here, especially in most of New Hampshire, for the most part, and of course there's always exceptions, people actually listen, and they don't just rubber stamp things. And I mean, you look at the way the Democrats run things, everything is party line, everything is party line, everything is party line. And that's not how it's supposed to be, because everybody in a community doesn't think the same way. And it would be so nice for representation to return to the people.
Yeah, I didn't know you worked for a national write-your congressman. That's interesting. I wish more people took the time to write an actual letter. We get a ton of emails, and I mean hundreds of emails on a given subject. Some of them are through those automated utilities where a constituent can click, 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 and they get sent by a automated facility, a bot or something like that. And even those, if I see they're from Merrimack, I do try to respond, at least with a quick email. And I don't have any automated facility to do that. So if you're watching and you send me an email through One Click Politics or one of those, you will get an email back and know that I sent it personally. And sometimes I don't know if they make it to you, because I don't know if those automated emails actually have a way to get back to you. So if you're from Merrimack, I will respond to you. And I know not every rep gets a chance to do that because we get so many. So write me a letter. It's P.O. Box 1717, Merrimack, New Hampshire. I get them. I open all of them. We love to hear from you. If you have a constituent service issue, if you're having a problem with a state agency, and I'll emphasize a state agency. If you need a town resource, I'll be happy to help you. I'll probably try to refer you to one of our great town councilors, since they know more and that's their area of expertise. I do get a lot of questions on town issues, noise ordinances and things like that, or construction problems, but some of those are better handled on the town level. I also get a lot of questions on federal issues, and sometimes we have limited ability to help on federal issues. But on the state agency side, we can definitely help you navigate those things. So please write us, email us. All of our emails are located on the New Hampshire General Court website. You can locate your legislator very easily. And we truly like the contact. We want to know how you feel and what your opinion is. And whether we agree or disagree, we try to write back. And it's very, very useful for us. We truly take it into account. We're there to represent you. And not just our views. We try to tell you how we'll vote in advance, but every bill is different and complicated, and sometimes there are a multitude of floor amendments at the last minute. So when it comes down to that 30 seconds on the clock, and it's red button or green button, and the 30 seconds is counting down, it could be a lot different than the bill that was originally publicized. So we take that into account, and we take your opinions into account. So do in fact write your congressman. We're not your congressman, but write your state representatives, and write all 8 of us, and pay attention to who writes back, because sometimes I hear that only a few of us write back.
Interesting. Well, that's great. And now, can they reach you through your website as well? Or
100%.
Okay.
They can definitely reach us through the website. The easiest way for legislative business is definitely for the sitting reps is through the legislative website, which is on General Court. I do have a non-legislative campaign website, which is really entirely separate. That's paid for out of my pocket, and it's very much campaign related. That's I think Justin will put it on the screen. It's www.votemcgough.org. But the legislative one, if you have a constituent service issue, is separate. And that's Gen Court. It's www. Actually, you don't need that part. It's just Gen Court, GENCOURT.state.nh.us. That's complicated. Google is great for that. And there's a drop down to select your legislator. And I know Representative Mooney often talks about that in her legislative updates too. So she's a great source for constituent service. But that's what we're there for, is to help our constituents figure out where to go in the big the big state government. And speaking of big state government, one of the things we're there to do is make government a little smaller, a little more efficient, so we can send some of our money, it's all of our money, some of your money back to you at the end of the day.
Good. Now, we've got a lot of things that really need to be addressed in New Hampshire. And, you hear, and you really kind of get tired of hearing everybody say, well, every state's a border state. Well, New Hampshire actually is a border state. And we've had quite a number of people that shouldn't be coming through our northern border, not just the southern border.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember just recently somebody had proposed, turning one of the cities into a sanctuary city. And I know that kind of didn't go anywhere, thank God.
Yeah.
But, we don't want to be like where I grew up. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I think I was one of 3 Republicans in Worcester. So, I was happy to move when I did finally move, and then found this place, and I love it here. I mean, I've been here 20 years. This is probably, in fact, this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life.
Yeah.
And I have absolutely no intention of leaving, which is part of the reason that I am getting involved as well. I want to keep New Hampshire the way it was when I got here. And over the past 20 years, it's kind of slipped away a little bit, and then it started to come back, and then it started to slip away a little bit again, and came back. And we just want to make sure that it stays the way it should be, a place where people can have the freedom to do the things that they want. I mean, one of the most impressive things that came up over the past few years was the constitutional carry rule. And, when I was in Massachusetts, I was a policeman. It took me 9 months for them to issue me a gun permit every time I applied for it. When I moved to New Hampshire, I had my permit within 3 days, and now don't even need it, which is even better. I mean, it's still a good thing to have.
Our freedoms are important. I hear about it every day knocking the doors. People want a safe community. My campaign manager is a policeman also. I hear every day people want to feel safe in their communities, and that the border crisis is at our doorstep. And certain legislators, my opponent's one of them, voted to keep New Hampshire and to keep Hillsborough County a sanctuary county. Most people don't realize that Cheshire County and Hillsborough County, the county that my district is in, is a sanctuary county. So we have sanctuary cities right here. We're living in one. Right? Our own police officers and police force don't have the ability to cooperate with federal agencies. So I hear about it. You read it in the papers. It was in the papers last week, the week before. They find murderers, drug dealers, rapists 20 minutes from us.
Yeah.
So we have a border that's 3-4 hours north of here. The Northern Border Alliance has a funding eliminated. So here's the significance of that. I have a meeting in about an hour from now. I'm on the New Hampshire Canadian Trade Council. In fact, I'm the clerk of that. I was appointed by the Secretary of State. We have a meeting in an hour. The Northern Border Alliance cooperates with us. And that we talk a lot about the northern border, but the most important border for this district is 20 minutes south of here. It's at the Pheasant Lane Mall, right? That's where we've got fentanyl coming across the border. Here's where I first learned about fentanyl. I moved here 30-some years ago for my first sales job at Digital Equipment, met a guy who was a volunteer on Merrimack Ambulance Rescue Service. I was already a basic EMT working the streets of Lawrence and Lowell. One of my first shifts, I did a little bit of overtime, and I was shot at. In that first shift, it was a day you turned the clocks forward, and my relief forgot to come in, so we had a hostage standoff, and the guy was shooting out the window at us, and he was intent on killing us because he was high on drugs. Wasn't fentanyl then, but I'll tell you, I've treated hundreds, probably thousands of fentanyl overdose patients. Those patients die. They don't stand a chance. You read about it in the paper a week or so ago, that 9-month-old that died of fentanyl. The amount of fentanyl that'll fit on the tip of your finger will kill a 9-month-old baby. We don't want that here in Merrimack. We don't want it in Milford. We don't want it in Amherst or Wilton. That's why we need a strong voice and somebody that will vote against sanctuary city policies. We need somebody who will be strong on those issues. We'll vote against them. And I can tell you firsthand, those overdoses are not pretty. Right? I've treated them. We've got to vote against those and be safe, have safe communities in this district. It's about time we have a senator from Merrimack or Milford, one of the two biggest towns in this district.
And I have a close friend that's a police chief in a neighboring community, and he has told me that since he's become chief, he couldn't believe what was actually going on, because at a patrolman level, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, I mean, you're working your way up, and the further up you get into a police department, the more political it gets. And he was absolutely dumbfounded with, the things that most people don't know take place. And I've got another friend who's a head of financial crimes in a neighboring community as well, and he's been telling me stories about, the phone scams and everything else, and then trying to recover the money, and and with the AI stuff that's taken place, one of them was a legitimate situation where somebody thought that their child had been kidnapped. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And then try and track down the money. One of the drops, they had to send money to Florida, of all places, to a UPS box, and
they need support. Those law enforcement agencies need support. Two things we need to invest in, right? I'm not a big spender when it comes to expanding government, but we need to invest in certain areas that pay off in the end. I'm a business guy, so I look at making an investment and getting a return on that investment. Healthcare, certain aspects of healthcare absolutely need investment. Law enforcement, first responders need support. We need to invest in those areas because that pays off in the end, right? Not only because it's just the right thing to do, right? But it pays off. It is the right thing to do. But even if you wanted to ignore that, look at the long-term effects of investing in good mental health care. That will prevent somebody from becoming addicted to drugs. And in the end, you have more productive members of society, more people working and contributing and staying out of a long cycle of addiction or being dependent upon publicly funded health care or free care. And that helps all of us because we pay for that in the end. So mental health care, we need to invest in that. I've seen the effects of drug addiction. And I'm actually the fairly newly elected, just a few months ago, vice chair of the Attorney General's Healthcare Consumer Protection Advisory Commission. One of the things we do is oversee how our state uses the money from the mergers like CMC. Everybody's heard about CMC being taken over by HCA. More recently, Beth Israel Lahey bought Exeter Healthcare. You probably heard.
I did not hear
probably
that.
heard in the news that Exeter ALS, the emergency response system, the paramedic system, they announced that they were going to shut down the paramedic system that responds to 22 communities, supporting 22 communities, and they were going to do it on 10 days' notice. Today's the 23rd of September when we're filming this. They announced it on the 10th of September that in 10 days, all the paramedics, the director, all laid off 10 days' notice. The AG had to intervene and say, hey, you're a public trust company and you cannot abandon 22 communities of ALS. So our commission will have a look at how we can support those communities and provide some grants out of this fund. Now, this is money that Exeter has already paid for the privilege of accomplishing this merger, right? And that's a good way to support our first responders and those municipalities that are in desperate need of life-saving ALS care. And it's near and dear to my heart. I'm a paramedic. I came here and was a volunteer on Merrimack Ambulance Rescue Service. That was one of the first volunteer things I did in this community for about 8 years. So I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how I met Julie in the ER at CMC.
Yep.
I was a young medic. She was a young nurse. We've been together ever since. So anyhow, those are some of the things that I think we should invest in: healthcare, law enforcement, first responders. And in the end, that leads to good cost savings, helps all of us get our cost of living down. And that is actually leads me back to the number one thing that I hear about day to day is, what are you going to do about inflation? What are you going to do to help me get my grocery bill down? Especially when you knock doors on the weekends.
Yeah.
When people go grocery shopping.
It's interesting because, you hear all the politicians saying, well, interest rates are up and, inflation is up, and that all comes right down to energy. And we are taking all of our energy resources and buying from other countries when we shouldn't be doing that. And you wonder why when gas goes from $2.50 to $4, diesel fuel raises the same. The food has to still get there. And when it's costing 30% more to transport goods, of course the price has to go up because it's costing them more. Now, having been in the restaurant industry, there's magic numbers, 40% food cost, 20% labor, overhead, and you run through all the numbers. And a lot of the restaurants have tried to keep their prices down, but they can't because there's just not enough stuff being shipped. And a lot of our meat processing plants are now owned by China, of all places. I believe they own, was it 80% of all the pork industry in the United States?
I heard that, actually. Smithfield or something, right? Yeah. They bought? Yeah. Wow, that's a little shocking to have that kind of offshore influence on our food supply. Geez, buy American. Talking to the real American here, buy American. Think about going to your local farm stand. I don't get out there often enough, but we did enjoy some of the last summer corn last night. We love to go to Depot Farm Stand. We do make it out to Hollister once in a while, one of our favorite spots. But wow, that's an incredible amount of foreign interest. We have a couple of bills in the House about restricting foreign ownership. It's tricky business. In terms of restricting foreign interests and balancing property owners' rights to allow folks to sell their property to who they want to. But I would not want to see foreign interests or Chinese interests of land right next to the Space Force property in New Boston. So I think there's a real balancing act there, and we have to protect our national security interests, and it starts right here in New Hampshire. I mean, we have some pretty critical assets. Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, which is, I know, not all in New Hampshire, but we have critical satellite watching security stations right in New Boston.
Yeah. So. Well, we're winding down here a little bit.
Before we do, I got a little something for you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for having me on the show. For my good friends, anytime I go on a show like this, I got to bring you. This is a coin that I designed based on the. I'll show it to the camera here just in a second, Justin. This is a coin I designed that shows a couple important things to me. It has General Stark on it with his regimental flag and the Live Free or Die logo and the rest of it. So I'll just show it here to the camera. Hopefully you can see that okay there. So this is General Stark on his horse from Stark Park with Live Free or Die and General Stark's own handwriting taken from historical documents. And across the bottom is the correct depiction of the rest of the motto. Death is not the greatest of evils. Then on the back, we have, so we don't ever forget him, we have the old man of the mountain here.
It's absolutely beautiful.
And then we have three important things. And I know you always speak the truth, so we have the truth across the top here. Mm-hmm. And then we have the words dedication and the courage to continue speaking the truth when nobody else will. And what drives us both to do that is down here in Latin, it says Fidelem Deo, which is faith in God. So I'll give you that. That's number 20 of the limited edition. It has number 20 on the edge.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that.
And is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we go? I mean, they can obviously make campaign donations via your campaign website.
Sure.
We know that everything pretty much runs on money these days.
Oh, yeah, that's not what we're here for. I'm just here to introduce myself or remind voters that I'm here working for them. November 5th, the big day. It's a critical day for Senate District 11. It's a choice between weak leadership from a small town or strong leadership from one of the biggest towns in the district that will get things done. I'm going to bring experience, compassion, and collaboration for our Senate seat. And it's about time that we have that representing Merrimack, Amherst, Wilton, and Milford. So I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Think of me, it's Tim Mcgough, 3 terms in the House, and willing to step up to the Senate now to really make a difference. check me out online. You can see it right here, www.votemcgough.org. Thanks a lot, Tracy.
Well,
I
you've
appreciate
got
you
my
having me.
support, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody that is watching. And if you have any questions, reach out. Have a great day.